Okay, so hi everyone. So my name is Mathieu Texier. I'm a senior consulting engineer in Arbor Networks for now more than 4 years. So the first thing I would like to do is to thank the FRANSIX organization and Solène in particular for organizing this event. It's quite a long time since we have been joining such an event. So it's a good opportunity for us to meet you all and do this presentation. I hope you will enjoy it. It's mainly about peering and how to deal with NetFlow analysis, how to configure it, how to use it, what are the best practices. So we will discuss this not extensively, but at least I will try to drop some message, drop some bottles in the ocean, and I hope you will find those messages interesting, and hopefully you will catch it. So the first thing to say about network visibility globally is that there are many different type of requirements and many different views that you can give out of your network. In particular, the guys from the support and maintenance will have certain types of requirements. Peering coordination, capacity planning, they will have other types of requirements, other type of views that they will need, different types of abstraction. The same security expert will come with their own set of requirements. But the whole thing is really about knowing what's happening in your network and feeling a bit secure with your network. Security is mainly related to fear. If we all in this room feel comfortable and secured, this is because we know that we are in Paris, we are in the Crown Plaza, we are around with people that we know each other. So by knowing your infrastructure, by understanding how flows are passing through your network, that's the first things you need to have to feel secure. So many different type of requirements. So what I would like to highlight is to answer those different needs. There are some guidelines and best practices that you need to follow to make sure that you end up with the right result at the end, and you will comply with those different requirements. So one of the guidelines and something that we used to live with our customers the first time that we met them is that they used to make too much of a relationship between the need that they have at the end, the functional needs, the views, the reports that they want to produce, and the way they want to configure NetFlow in their network. Normally, you will need to try to keep this as separated as possible. The first thing that you need to think about is to configure your network such that it will properly report the traffic globally, without thinking that it's a traffic to do peering reporting, traffic to do capacity planning, to do DDoS detection or whatever. The first thing you need to make sure is that you abstract the functional needs from the way you will configure your network. Otherwise, you will always end up with some sort of limitation. The second thing that you need, where we will go a little bit more deeper in the next coming slides, is about how to configure NetFlow and your routing protocols and the different routing topology, such that you will have a proper view of your traffic, and what you will see will actually look at what you have in your network. Again, this kind of technology, NetFlow, is a must, is very useful for many different people in the organization of the hosting providers, service providers. But if it's not properly configured, you will end up with potentially completely wrong information. So then the last thing is that you really need to, what is very specific in Arbor, and when I joined Arbor 4 years ago, that's really what surprised me the most, is that there are people that have a deep understanding of networking, deep understanding of internet, deep understanding of security. So it means that you need to have a serious background and serious expertise and skills to have this abstraction and to understand all those things all together. And most of our guys, they have minimum 10 or 15 years of experience in the internet networking, in other vendors, router vendors or whatever. So this is also very important to understand that between the raw information coming from the routers and the final results, there is a huge amount of work, much more than we used to believe. So with regards to NetFlow, it's not always easy to highlight and to try to abstract best practices, because there are many different implementations in the market, and many different implementation in the routers, whether it's distributed, centralized, whether the sampling is done in one place, NetFlow is done in a different place in the router. So there are many different implementations. But we try as a company, because it's one of our main focus, to highlight some key things to be done to make sure that you will have the right end results. Excuse me. So again, one of the key thing you need to think about is to make sure that you report the whole traffic. You don't care about how you want to show it at the end. First, report the entire traffic, and then the software which is on top, the collector, and whatever you put on top will actually do the job to build the right view and show you the right data. But make sure that your router is just giving you all the information is receiving. For this, and as best practices, we try to implement or configure NetFlow on the routers such that the first requirement is that it doesn't impact the performance of the equipment, of course. That's the key, because otherwise you will just never enable it. So to make sure that you will not impact the performance of the routers, you have to somehow configure NetFlow with respect to the normal packet walk of the packets within the routers. So it means don't try to configure it such that it will put additional workload on the router. And for this, the best way to proceed is to configure NetFlow at ingress on the interface, incoming traffic, not egress, only ingress, but you configure it on all interfaces. It means whether it's a backbone, access, whatever type of interfaces, you configure it at ingress only. Why that? Because every router is doing hop-by-hop routing, and most of the time when they receive the packet on the ingress interface, the router is doing the IP lookup, and by proceeding with this IP lookup, is just collecting more or less all the information which are needed to build the NetFlow packet, the NetFlow reporting. So that's why if you configure it at ingress, that's where you have the better chance to have the good results at the end. This is in particular true also because when you produce the NetFlow packet, you also have the egress interface, because the router is doing its IP lookup, calculating the outgoing port, and it will report you the outgoing port. So when you configure it at ingress, you will also have the egress information. Another thing very important is to have a consistent implementation of NetFlow all over your network. So it means you need to have the same parameters on all your equipments, like the active timeout, inactive timeout, the sampling. Apply the same sampling on all your routers. Otherwise, you will have some inconsistencies that may create some problems. And after that, what you need as well, and that's a prerequisite before you actually look deeper into some of your reports, is you need to have some reports that checks whether the NetFlow is properly configured or not. So this is typically a screenshot of one of our reports that we use when we first configure the product on the system. So typically we have the SNMP information here in the gray, and you have the blue line, which is NetFlow. So this is a screenshot coming from a production system. So when we arrived and we were doing the trial with the customer, the NetFlow was not well configured because you see that the gray lines, the blue line, do not follow the gray one. And then we finally changed the NetFlow configuration, and we end up at having a NetFlow strictly following the SNMP curve. And then in this case, as soon as you have this on all interfaces of your routers, then you can jump to the reports, to the various reports, and you know that what you will see is actually what is really flowing through your backbone. It seems to be quite obvious, but there are many people, when we installed the system the first time, they used to have their own collector or doing their own development to do some first NetFlow analysis. And sometimes they realize when we install our stuff that they were counting 2 times or sometimes 4 times the bandwidth that was actually flowing through your backbone for years, and then realize that finally they had only 2 times or 4 times less bandwidth in their backbone. So that's very important, and in this kind of case, we see that we have input and output which is wrong. So in most cases, when you have such curve, it means that NetFlow itself, the NetFlow process is not working properly, because it's not a matter of ingress, egress, or whatever. You see that both ingress and egress is wrong. So here it was just a matter of the size of the cache, of the NetFlow cache, which was too small. And it was also a matter of enabling MPLS flow cache, because there were some traffic that was encapsulated in MPLS. And for many years, MPLS and NetFlow was not very good friends. Now it's getting better, hopefully. Now that we have NetFlow, the second thing is to make sure that we provide the right understanding of this traffic, and the right understanding and the right views. As we are all here, we know whole BGP, we all know Internet, we all know what is an ISN, an ISPath, a prefix. So we have somehow to bind this traffic to the BGP routing table. So this is also a very important feature that will differentiate NetFlow collector for the enterprise against a NetFlow collector for service providers or hosting providers or people doing cloud provider. Is that what is interesting for us is what is doing our network with the internet and what is doing the internet with our network. What's happening within our network is also important, but we also need to have this view. And we all use BGP as a routing protocol to do so. So there are 2 types of BGP topology. There are much more, but at least for a matter of simplification, I only put those 2, which are the main ones. Whether you have a mesh topology with your peering edge routers that are connected to your transit providers, or you have access edge routers that receive their topology from a route reflector. If you want to end up by having the right mapping of the flows against the BGP routing table, all those routers have their own view of the internet because they are connecting to different peers. They have different routes coming to them. So they all have a different topology. Probably 70% is close to each other, but there are differences. So that's why for this type of routers, we used to receive the full table of each of those routers. And we bind the NetFlow coming from each of those routers to each different topologies to make sure that we have that we map the flows to the right topology. So it means that in certain deployment we can have I don't know, more than 10 or 15 million routes on one collector. For those type of routers, it's obviously different because it's more access edge routers. So in most cases, they have the consolidated routing information database coming from the route reflector. And to manage flows coming from all those peering edge routers, we used to advise to have only one topology, not to overload the system with multiple millions of routes, which are useless, because all those ones, most of the case, they have something which will be very similar to what is happening in the route reflector. This is very important also to deal with the asymmetric routing that is occurring on the internet, and make sure that when we send the traffic to an ASN via path and we have the return information coming from a different path, that we have the right view of all those type of behavioral. Okay. So that's basically the main points with regards to best practices and guidelines that I would like to highlight. Now, if we go to more to the different use cases, so that there are many different use cases in our product, but I try, of course, to focus on peering because it's. I think we are all subject matter experts of peering here in this room. So there are predefined reports in the product, and that's also, of course, the value of the product is that we already build out of our almost 15 years of experience of NetFlow, we define reports that are already or usable for you. In particular, if you're a peering coordinator and you want to, for example, find an ASN where you can eventually build your private peering and offload some of your transit provider, we have some reports, what we call the peering evaluation. When you have all the ASNs with all the traffic for each of those ASNs where you are exchanging traffic with, and then you will see whether you have a balanced relationship with certain ASNs. So here in this case we have a ChinaNet backbone which is quite balanced. And then most of the time the second question you will ask yourself is whether you will save some traffic and obviously behind some money from your transit provider. So then if you click directly on the ASN, we will do a breakdown by peer of this traffic, and you will know right from this report what is the amount of bandwidth you will save if you build via FranceX or via whatever IX appearing directly with those with this ASN, how many traffic you will offload from the different transit providers you have. And this, of course, directly is related to what you're paying every month to those guys. There is also some other reports, and as I mentioned, we are paying a lot of attention of trying to bind the BGP topology with the data plane. So trying to make the relationship between the control plane and the data plane. And we are also building those types of reports where you have the view of the data plane and the view of the control plane. So you have all the routes and the amount of prefixes per peer that you have on your network. And you have the traffic, which is related to those peers. So it means that in terms of if you're working as a support in maintenance of your network, you will see that if you're losing routes from a peer and then you will see from which other peer you will learn those routes that you lost on one hand, and you will also see what is the impact on the data plane. So where you will lose some traffic and where the traffic will be rerouted because something happened with your transit provider or something happened on the internet. So this is also very this is not, of course, exhaustive examples. We have many reports, but I try to highlight some of the key ones. This is also a very important one. which is maybe more addressing also the people from support. Maybe one more point with regards to the binding of BGP and NetFlow. There are different approach also where the routers are trying to make this relationship within the router itself. So it means that on top of the standard NetFlow fields, which is source IP, destination IP, source port, destination port, all the things that we see in the NetFlow packets, certain router vendors try to add BGP next hop, source origin ASN, those type of information in NetFlow. It's true that in certain cases it works, but on certain situations it doesn't. Again, it's very implementation specific. For certain routers that are doing NetFlow very centralized, where the control plane is directly attached to the daemon which is doing NetFlow, they can exchange the information and they can produce some accurate NetFlow BGP and NetFlow information. For others that are a very distributed way of implementing NetFlow, where NetFlow is daemon is directly on the line cards, it is not always that accurate because the line cards sometimes they have a very reduced view of the forwarding information database and they cannot fulfill the right information. So if we want now not to go with a big picture of internet but more optimize one particular peer, you can use, we also provide some reports for a particular peer to know the busiest link of this particular, where you connect to this particular peer. And we also provide all the required information if you want to offload some of those links by finding, for example, the ASN, which is sending or receiving the more traffic for this particular link. So you choose the interface, and then we will provide you the list with all the ASNs that are passing through this interface and the amount of traffic for all of them. So then you can influence the routing and eventually change your local preference or prepend or do some multi-exit discrimination so that you can optimize your traffic. Same for prefixes. So we can list all the prefixes on each interfaces and the amount of traffic per prefixes, such that you can also change your router configuration to influence the way you will route those packets. And then I won't be completely an Arbor guy if I was not talking about security and DDoS. So I also did some slides on DDoS and on the way we understand DDoS with Arbor. So the thing is that we have a centralized view of the whole network. This is very key for DDoS. If you don't have a centralized view of the whole network, you will not catch and understand exactly how the attack is done. So that's very important to cover the entire network and have a centralized view of this network. And typically, this is what we provide when we have an alert. So an alert is basically that we exceed certain amount of traffic for particular signatures like DNS, UDP, or these kind of things, without diving into too much details, of course. So we'll provide this type of reporting, and then we will provide what is the impact, the maximum bandwidth that has been generated, so that you can evaluate the risk, whether it's important or not, whether it will potentially break down your infrastructure or not. Which type of signature is it, whether it's UDP, DNS, which type of traffic, but also which asset is the target of the attack, which asset or customer is the target of the attack. And this is of course very important because depending on who is under attack, we'll take different decisions. Typically, if it's a broadband users that did some crappy things on a gaming server or whatever and is receiving 10 gig of traffic and crashing down half of your backbone, you will probably black hole the traffic. If it's an attack to your DNS server and you provide lots of DNS authorities on your DNS server, you will of course work in a different manner. Okay, So that's very important because the strategy of mitigation will be completely different. And for things that are key for your business, you will take, of course, different strategy and potentially less or more costly strategy to defend your asset. Another thing is what is very important is to understand the traffic from the attack. So which router contributes to the attack, on which interface, from where it's coming from which interface on which interface the traffic is entering, whether there's only one router, one interface, or multiple ones. Of course, the strategy to defend and to protect your asset will be different as well. What is also very important, and that we provide on the last release of Peakflow SP, is that we provide also the source ASN for each attack, which are the source ASN that are producing the more traffic. And this could be very important, and this is a design we are pushing more and more, is to enable URPF, lose, and eventually build in your network an internet VRF or a limited view of the internet where you will withdraw some of those ASNs that generate the more traffic, which could help you to reduce significantly the size of the attack and eventually deal with the rest of the attack with a mitigation system or with whatever solution you may have. And of course, last but not least, the IP address, which provide more traffic. In particular, important when this is an amplification attack, reflective attack, because sometimes few IPs can generate a lot of traffic. So sometimes with a simple access list, you will just deal with the attack and be able to save your infrastructure. So another point is that now we also did conversions between IPv4 and IPv6, which was not an easy job, but finally we did it. It took us quite some time, but now it's done. So as a conclusion, I will, I don't know if I'm okay in terms of time, maybe even too fast, I don't know. Maybe just a few trends on the technology point of view and maybe on the features and what we are doing. So purely on the protocols and the technology itself. So with regards to NetFlow, we are doing some efforts with regards to what we used to call NetFlow v10 or IPFix, which is a standardized version of NetFlow v9 in a certain way. We are getting out of problems, but it's not yet completely solved, I would say, mainly because as in many cases, standardization and the industry are not working always very well together. And if you look at what has been done in IPFix in particular, it's kind of a mess. Because, for example, IPFix was supposed to be supported only with SCTP and not UDP, for example. So the UDP part has been not very well defined. And all the vendors are, or at least the ones we are working with, did it with UDP. So then we end up with some problems with observation domains, different IDs related to the UDP sessions. So it was kind of a mess. Now it's on its way to be solved, but it's not yet completely done. As you know, we are doing BGP Flow Spec for quite some time, and we are BGP Flow Spec lovers, or at least I am. And we are also working to have an homogeneous implementation with v4 and v6. Again, this is not completely easy at this time because there are still some problems in terms of standardization. The drive v4 and drive v5 have some differences. The NLRI, there are certain vendors that implement the drive 4, some others the drive 5. So there are still some inconsistency, but I think it should be solved in the coming months. But this is something we are working on definitely. So traffic visibility, We are more and more thinking, and we did some prototypes to complement NetFlow and BGP with some others information, and in particular try to map the traffic also with DNS resolution, which is always useful to understand the CDNs, how the CDNs are working on top of the peering, and how to bind the peering relationship with the CDNs that are on top of it. Also to deal with the application, to what is SSL encapsulated, all those type of things. So we are. This is something we are working on, and where you should heard about in the coming months from us. With regard to DDoS, there are also something important we are working on, is the latency to detect DDoS, and it's always a chicken and egg issue with this type of issue, this type of detection, because the more quick you detect DDoS, as it's still a statistical analysis, the more false positives you generate. So it means you always need to find the right balance between the amount of false positives you're ready to accept and how quick you want to detect the anomaly. So that's why we are working, and we have actually a new release which is proposing some solution for this, to drop down the detection in less than 1 minute. Sometimes maybe a few seconds or tens of seconds. The main problem is that again, you have to balance this with the amount of false positive you're ready to accept. So that's why we will probably do that, but per assets. So it means for the assets that are really critical, you will be able to enable this feature and accept that in certain cases you will have some false positives. That's it for now. Any questions?
Hello, Maurice Dean from Facebook. I am very interested in the points you're making about traffic visibility and trying to map CDN traffic to, let's say, DNS configurations and, let's say, decisions on that layer. So interested, in fact, that I wouldn't mind seeing if we can work together on it. It's an area that certainly Facebook are interested in. I suspect other content providers are extraordinarily interested in solving for. So I just said to voice my support, and maybe you can talk to a little bit about the direction you're taking there before we collaborate on some stuff. Okay.
Yes, that's a quite hot topic at the time being. I don't have the whole figures to be frankly speaking. I know that we did some prototypes, and the idea is to capture. The whole question is where to capture this DNS traffic to have something accurate, because DNS resolution can have many different values, whether you're doing global load balancing or all those things. It's not yet completely clear for now, but this is something we can discuss. But for the moment, yeah, it's more like this type of collaboration, meaning one-to-one discussions, and it's not yet a product today. But I think to exchange from pure technical level and technical perspectives, we are definitely interesting to share with you.
Okay, cool. One tip, a hint, a directional, let's say, comment. If you had an ability to check that DNS resolvers, IP addresses, are consistently announced with the client's prefixes. This is a huge area of mapping for content providers, where the resolver addresses are not announced together with client addresses that those servers are used for. This is where you get lots of odd traffic.
Okay.
Anyway, it's a good area to start with.
Got it. Thank you.
Sorry, one more question. Sorry, my English accent is not as good as yours. My name is François from Border 6. You didn't mention, or I missed it, anything about OTT. We see that OTT related peering strategies are changing a bit the internet paradigm, because some people are bringing more and more critical services on the internet, and on the other side you see that transit providers and ASPs are shrinking or try to make their pipes payable. What do you plan with OTT?
Yeah, so but it's also related to that. I mean, all of this is really related to, I would say, more globally layer 5-7 relationship between the layer 3 in a certain way. The main problem we have is that we have to value those features, and to value those features you need to have also a business model behind it, and for the moment the business model is still peering, even if it comes with a significant problem, as you mentioned. So the problem is that it's not always easy to, even out of the reports, our end customers are not always able to charge or to justify anything. So it's one way, it's one answer to provide the reports, but if there's no traction in terms of business model behind, it's not always easy to make the feature really available. Because like every company, we prototype many things, because we have guys that are very pushing for innovation in Arbor. The thing is that between a first beta approach and a product, we need to find the right models with our customers. And the thing is that even if we produce those reports, as you mentioned, over the top, who's paying what, how do we deal with whether they are willing to pay. We have all this story between Google, Orange, YouTube, free, whatever. It has been a long discussion for a while. The problem is that we never end up with a business model behind. So, it's not that easy. But this is something we are working on. It's the same kind of trend. So it means that on top of the idea is really to have this peering map, and on top of this peering map having the over-the-top players. So for the moment we have something, because most of the over-the-top players, sometimes they have a list of ISNs, so you can group those ISNs into an object being, I don't know, Google or whatever, but it's not as accurate as it could be with some more information that you can get from DNS, which is one way to do it, but there are many other ways. So yes, this is something we are working on it, but it's a technical issue, but it's also a business issue somewhere.
Just to comment on that, and then I'll stop. I won't share too much information with you, because in some cases we are competing on reporting actually. But what we see is that, for instance, in next PLNOG, the equivalent of the FRNOG next week in Krakow, there is something like 4 or a third of the presentations about internet traffic engineering, which is really new, because 5 years ago, or even 2 years ago, nobody was talking about this, which is very good news.
Yeah, I agree.
And I can just share the fact that performance is getting very important for most of the customers, measuring performance, simulating user traffic, and so on. And we see that, for instance, in next PLNOG, Booking is going to talk about their peering strategy, because they are a bit reviewing all this. And I think this is the hot topic for the coming years, and for most of the people in the room. Yeah.
I definitely agree with you. Okay. Thank you. Enjoy.